Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So we got some more Amazon Lord of the Rings news to talk about. Obviously they're ramping up the promotion for the show, bringing out all these Empire exclusive pictures and articles. And we've got another one here from Lenny Henry, who is playing a halfwit, kind of like a hobbit. In this age, what they're using for Amazon, I don't know what they're doing. And what they're doing with these characters, they're not supposed to be in there. Everyone loves hobbits. They can relate that to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, the trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. And they just want to put them in there just because basically if they used what they were supposed to be using, the first and second age, no one would know what was going on. They just put the hobbits in there, or the hobbit-like creatures in there, for nostalgia, so it gets people in to watch the show. But there's a couple of things in this which I wasn't too happy about. Well, what a fucking surprise that I'm not happy about something they're saying about the Amazon Lord of the Rings show. But let's take a look. So this just goes over what Lenny Henry's saying. There's an image there. Okay, people of color are on the screen. That's what this is all about, apparently, because we've never had people of color on the screen in fantasy sci-fi ever before, and that's what this is going to touch on. So let's take a look at what he said. Here's what I have an issue with. We're the traditional Tolkien little guy. Traditionally, the little people in this world provide comedy, but also get to be incredibly brave. You're going to see us run the full gamut of emotions and actions in this adventure. Okay, the traditional Tolkien little guy. But the time period this is set, we know we've spoken many times about the time period this is set, and that the writers do not actually have the rights to the books for making this show of what they're actually doing for the time period it's set in. So they don't have Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, many stories from Tolkien's works. So they only have Lord of the Rings to go off, which basically has just a rough outline of the timelines. And none of this is in there, by the way. This is just all for the show, for the series, this Amazon series, and it has nothing to do basically with Tolkien, whatever he wrote. So that's the first one. We're the traditional Tolkien little guy. However, the Tolkien little guy has always been Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit. So that's where we know them from. If you're going into the stories and time periods of this, what they're supposed to be, it's not really about that. It's about the elves, Morgoth, Sauron, the creation of Arda, and it's not about hobbits. They've had their time, but Amazon obviously wants to bring the nostalgia back in for people to say, hey, we've got hobbits, this is Lord of the Rings. It's like, it's not supposed to be Lord of the Rings. It's supposed to be First and Second Age. That's the first thing I've had an issue with. Now the second and third one are right here. For Henry, taking on the role of Sadok Burrows, that's his name, not only allowed him to play in the fantasy genre that he loves, it also offered an opportunity to help shift the needle on a world that previously hasn't tended to feature people of color in prominent roles. Okay, let's just start here. I'm gonna rattle off a few names from fantasy sci-fi that I remember. Actually, even from before I remember. So Eartha Kitt was in this 1960s Batman. She was the first black Catwoman, and this was in the 1960s Batman show. Okay? A long time ago. So if you're talking about, first, we've been there and done that a long time ago. But I'm going to keep going. Halle Berry also did Catwoman. Another black Catwoman. She also plays Storm in the X-Men series. You've got Rufio. That's a POC. The guy who played Rufio in Hook. I think mostly everyone loved that character. So I don't know what we're talking about. We never got to see people of color in prominent roles. Rufio was like a very prominent role and a pretty loved character. You also have Mace Windu, Star Wars. So Samuel L. Jackson. Billy D. Williams in Star Wars, and he was also in Batman as well as Harvey Dent. Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus, Will Smith, Men in Black, and many other sci-fi fantasy movies. And you also got Blade as well. Like, there's a bunch. So you got a lot of POC or black leads that were prominent roles, featuring people of color in prominent roles. I just rattled off a bunch. So we have seen it. It's a false narrative that they want to portray because they want to always think of them as the first. But it says, if you can't see it, you can't be it. I'll get back to that. Next he says, finally, in this show, kids are going to see people of color taking up space in the center of a fantasy series. We're very visible in this world, and that's very exciting. If all your story is based on is that you look like a person on the screen, then obviously your story is going to be shit, because it's not actually going to be about the story. It's going to be about, I look like that person, therefore I can identify with them. But what's the story going to be about? Nothing really. Current day Hollywood isn't going to do really anything with the story. They just make a really poorly written character that's person of color. So they want to put them in there as a person of color, make a poorly written character. And then when people say, hey, this is a trash character, then you want to say, you're a racist. It's like, well, no, we're talking about the character and you didn't do them very well. If you had an actually good character who was a POC, we'd be like, yeah, good on you. But It's not. And telling kids that they're finally able to see people of color taking up a space, it's already been done. You're not the first. You're not a pioneer, okay? And the reason why they're doing it now is because Tolkien's work he never wrote what they're doing here. So this is their chance to take over the space and be like, put people of color in. But just flip it. Just flip it. If it was a fantasy series that was based historically black, and now they said we need to equalize it out. We need to level it out and make it equal for equality or equity, whatever they want to call it. We need to put white characters in this. Do you think it'd be the same thing? No, we know it wouldn't be. And the last thing I want to go over is if you can't see it, you can't be it. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Anyone can cosplay it as anyone. I've seen black people at cosplays and conventions as white characters because they love that character so much. This idea that if you can't see it, you can't be it. Like, I also know a bunch of guys who they love Luke Skywalker, but these guys are black. It doesn't come down to the skin color of Luke Skywalker for them to relate to the character. That's all it is to these people. Can I relate to the character because of my skin color? That's the most shallow, disgraceful thing to do to a character of all time. It's not about you can't be it. It's about relating to things in that character. Like, Wonder Woman's my favorite DC character. When I watch those movies or read those stories as well, like, you can pick things out. I don't have to be a female to read that or watch that movie and be like, I can relate. I don't have to do that. Your narrative's broken because there's been multiple people of color in prominent roles in sci-fi and fantasy. If you can't see it, you can't be it. That's just wrong. Like, what are you teaching these kids? And the last bit where he's saying you're going to see people of color taking up space. That means they are, in this case, taking up the space of characters that were supposed to be in this show that were not historically black or POC because Tolkien never wrote them that way. But that's not okay because it's 2022 apparently, and we have to change fantasy novels and stories to fit the current day narrative and agenda. And that's just fundamentally wrong. And it's leading to the destruction of everything we've come to know and love, from fantasy, sci-fi, comics, movies, everything, entertainment. And Amazon's Lord of the Rings is no exception. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video out there, and thank you to my members at the Two Towers level, Daniel James and Sir Straith. We'll see you in the next one.